Hi, my name is Thomas Johnson, and I'm the founder and CEO of GetUpNGetFit Wellness Coaching Concierge. I'm also a C-suite advisor and investor, and you're listening to How May I Serve You, where I'm constantly on the quest to surround myself with the best coaches while learning how to better serve our executive clientele by asking them, How may I serve you? Today's show is sponsored by Get Up and Get Fit. Get Up and Get Fit will be providing students with textbooks and school supplies in Cambodia in honor of our guest today, as well as our philanthropic mission to impact at least 50,000 people per year. And today's guest is Andrew Gluck. Andrew, what's going on?
Not too much, not too much. Excited to connect, and I didn't even know about the mission. That's incredible. All the work you do on top of everything else, and supporting education. That's fantastic.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's something I'm extremely passionate about, man. You know, giving back is something that's close to my heart.
That's
So,
great.
Andrew Gluck is the founder and solo general partner at irrvrntVC. After a
Yes.
decade plus in the digital marketing, including founding and exiting agency within, he transitioned into early stage venture. So Andrew, it's IRVRNT. What's the pronunciation of that? I have to make sure I got that
Yeah.
right.
So it's pronounced irreverent. So when I was thinking
Irreverent.
about when I was thinking about naming a fund, one of the biggest things and most important to funds and how they're really measured is based on their IRR, on their internal rate of return.
Yeah.
I was looking at different words that start with IRR. Honestly, like scrolling through the dictionary and Google and just typing in different things.
Mhm.
Came across reverence and I was like, oh yeah, it's so me. Really focused on one of the things that I like as a person and just like in other people, including in founders, is people who are trying to challenge the system. Especially when there are things that are broken and need fixing. And one of the worst reasons to do something in my mind is because that's the way we've always done it, right? So the iconoclasts and the rebels are the people that are going to kind of lead the way and lead the charge. And so that's where the reverent name comes from, combination of looking for IRR and looking for those rebels.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I always
All right.
have two jokes on that. If the fund doesn't do well, we can always we can rebrand as irrelevant, and then hopefully maybe fund 2, fund 3, we can get a little bit higher AUM and go out and buy some vowels. So we'll see what happens.
There you go. But listen, you made it work. You made it work. So, Irreverent is an early stage fund focused on DTC, which is direct to consumer, ad tech, and next gen commerce. They invest 150K to 350,000 into founders with strong founder market fit, building in large and growing markets. They are happy to invest early. They were the first check a few times, committed before a lead multiple times, and about 50% of their checks are in companies' first non-founders. That's pretty awesome right there. First funding rounds, right? So select before those companies include Lunchbox, which is a big company, Caraway, Co-op, So Savvy, and more. Those are some huge companies right there, Andrew.
Yeah. So I, just been fortunate to find great founders, honestly, and be able to play a small part in their success. And yeah, that in my opinion is really what it comes down to. After exiting the agency, I spent about 2.5, 3 years doing early stage investing, really just meeting people from my network, going to events. Every time you meet someone, you meet 2 more people and everything else. And so ended up making 25 angel investments, and that portfolio did pretty well. And transitioned to more of a fund. And so in the angel portfolio, like you mentioned, invested in a lot of, first-time founders. A lot of times, their first round of capital, diverse founders, female founders, immigrant founders, LGBTQ founders, and so great founders can look like anything, come from anywhere, both in terms of background, and pedigree, geography. Right now I am exclusively focused kind of on the U.S. I'd say U.S., a little bit Canada, just because in terms of my expertise, that's what's holding me back from investing outside those places, not because I don't think that there's great founders outside of the U.S.
Yes, indeed. So, Andrew, I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. So, where are you from, man?
So I grew up in Englewood, New Jersey. Englewood, New Jersey is a suburb of Manhattan, just about 10 miles outside of Manhattan. Grew up here, and then went to school I like to say I went to school in Boston, so people think I went to Harvard, but I wasn't smart enough to get to Harvard. So I went to Brandeis, which is actually in Waltham, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. I was there, studied economics, always loved math, and then also loved the application of math, and so kind of blended that with psychology. Both my parents were psychologists. Always loved human behavior. Um, Behavioral economics, kind of the blend of that, and ended up getting into the marketing world. And so worked at a B2B company that sold street signs. They're the Amazon of street signs and parking signs and stop signs. They sold it all to small municipalities, to apartment building owners, some novelty, but mostly B2B. And then kind of learned digital marketing. Grew in that space over a few years, over a few roles, and then in 2014, co-founded Agency Within, grew that to be the largest independent digital marketing agency in the U.S. Had the opportunity to work with a lot of enterprise brands, so brands that you probably recognize, brands like Intuit, Shake Shack, Spanx, Etsy, agency record for performance marketing for Nike.com North America. I had and then we also worked with a lot of VC-backed brands, so brands that you may or may not have heard of. Some have gone on to wild success. Brands like Rothy's, who just sold, I don't know whether it was 49 or 50% of their company and valued $1 billion. Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow startup, Trade Coffee, PetFlow, Bandier, Zola, Helix, Trade Coffee, PetFlow, so a bunch of others. And then in 2018, I had a successful exit from the agency, so I had the chance to go and try to figure out what I wanted to do next. Realized that I got a lot of energy, excitement, passion from working with those early stage companies. Working with those founding teams, founders, was just incredible. They're some of the most ambitious people that I know, hardest working. Resonated with me in terms of kind of the startup mentality of there are no rules except just kind of grow.
Grind.
And figure out ways to grow. And so ended up, like I mentioned, investing in some of these companies and eventually transition from angel investing to raising funds.
Got you. So Andrew, I want to dive back a tad bit more because you mentioned both of your parents are psychologists, right? So
Yeah.
how was it growing up in a household with both your mother and your father were both psychologists? Like, I know it was probably hard to get away with anything. So talk to me about that, man.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's funny. I am probably, I'd say I'm on the more sensitive, spectrum of things. As a person, I actually, it's funny because I think I have a decent EQ, emotional quotient, but like, compared to people like my wife who, is way, way more in tune with reading people and reading their emotions and things like that. It's just interesting to me. Growing up with psychologist parents was great. I mean, my parents were around, they were active. They, definitely had a lot of questions about how I was feeling and how I was doing. But thank God for, thankfully for supportive parents are always a good thing to have.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, I mean, I know you mentioned before that, you are the co-founder of the largest independent digital marketing agency in the United States, right? Agency Within. So where you manage close to $1 billion worth of ad spend. And you work with companies like Nike, Billy, Zola, and etc. So it seemed like you were doing extremely well in that space. So what made you decide to go into the venture cap world, man?
Yeah, it was just time for kind of a change. Work-life balance, a few other things. Just made sense, kind of, to move on from that. Had a chance to exit and worked out. And then I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next.
Okay.
Transparently, I spent probably a few months kind of just figuring out what I wanted to do. And then so sold in like summer 2018, took a few months off, hang out with my kids, played a lot of tennis, a lot of golf, and then realized I get a lot of my identity, for better or worse, from what I do, and when I was thinking about kind of the places, again, just reflecting back on what I loved about agency within and the parts that I didn't like, and working there and running the company, realized I again just had tremendous passion, excitement for some of these early stage startups, and wanted to get more involved in that space. And so in October 2018, just started to meet a lot of people, lean on the network, the founders that I'd worked with before, just ask for introductions to other investors, other founders that they know, and kind of just went from there. Read a lot of books on the industry, signed up for all the newsletters. So was going to the city every single day, and on the subway in was reading 15, 20 different newsletters on all the different fundings, all the different things that were going on in the industry, all the kind of the rags, and just really immersed myself in that world. And so that was October, and then in the beginning of 2019 started to get comfortable enough to make some investments.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled upon you, right? Through Bonnie, right? Bonnie's newsletter, a friend of mine. She's amazing.
Yes, yeah.
So I mean, I reached out to you, my team reached out to you, and here we are right now. So I read that you especially love partnering with first time funders, right? And founders, I should say. So I know a lot of founders tend to make a lot of mistakes, and you mentioned that you would like for them to learn through your mistakes, right? So what would you say in terms of mistakes? What are the most common mistakes that you find that most founders tend to make?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every founder's kind of make their own mistakes in their own ways. Every company, and it's part of the process and learning process.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, the hardest thing to do is hiring.
Yes,
Um,
it
you know,
is.
right? Like all along, you're trying to find product market fit, right? And you're stumbling, maybe not stumbling, but you're grappling with and iterating quickly and learning. So in that phase, I think it's really about how do you find product market fit, and there's not really a science for that. I mean, there's obviously things you can take a look at, and I'm even a small investor through Syndicate in a company called Viable Fit, that tries to help people with, or companies kind of angle towards what is product market fit and how do I find it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and there you're iterating. You're usually a small team. You kind of gather friends, colleagues, and kind of trying to build something in the space. And then that's one challenge, right? I think they're the thing that I see the best founders do, more than the average or good or even founders, or not great founders, is iterate quickly, and ship quickly. So the best founders
Okay.
ship, the best companies ship, whether it's code, whether it's new product, whether it's whatever it is, because that's what it's all about. That's what you have. The incumbent stone is, they're these big giant ships. So when they make turns, it makes huge waves, but it's really hard to turn a cruise, a cruise ship, right? A lot easier to turn a small speedboat. You could be nimble and you could be quick, and so trying to iterate, quickly is wildly important.
So
And then
iteration.
iteration, exactly. And then as you scale and post product market fit, or as you're starting to find that product market fit and get into the scaling phase, it's hiring. A lot of people don't realize how critical hiring is, right? And
Yeah.
at a certain point, a founder's main job is actually recruiting and hiring. And so, one of the things that I look for really early on, when I'm evaluating founders is, can they sell? There's kind of three areas that founders have to sell to. They have to sell to clients or companies or customers. They have to sell to investors, right? Because they're always going to be selling, at the end of the day, more and more, equity in the company for cash. And then they have to sell to employees. You can sell them on their vision, sell potential employees on why does it make sense for you to come and leave your, your cushy job at Google and come, work for us and take a 60% pay cut for, and, get rid of all those wonderful perks that Google and the FANG type jobs have and come work here. And so I think that's really critical, is that founders spend a lot of time understanding and honing in on that message of why are we, why should someone come and work for us, and being able to spend a lot of time on recruiting and focus there.
Got you. So you mentioned something along the line of equity, right? So even though I invest once in a while, I'm actually a big advocate when it comes to bootstrapping, because I'm a bit stubborn, right? And I don't want to relinquish any equity in my business. Have you dealt with other startup founders with the same similar concerns where they want to work with an investor, but they find it hard to relinquish equity?
Yeah, I think it just depends, right? There's no right or wrong path, right? There's just different options. And there are companies that where it makes sense. Hey, like if this is if it's a capital intensive business and it's not going to be generating cash, and positive EBIT for a while, how else are you going to fund it, right? If it's, hey, this is a company that can kind of continue to grow and grow, whether it's really strong 20-30% a year or grow more slowly at 5-10% a year, those are all good things. And we're just going to keep reinvesting the cash into the company and into the business, and we'll pick up our heads in 5 years from now, it'll be a really big business and really successful. Or hey, we're just going to keep reinvesting the cash, and it'll be, it'll grow and it'll be a great business for us. And you got to just figure out what the path is, because once you step on that VC treadmill, it's really hard to step off. Because right at each phase and each step, what you're doing is, it's not just that you're selling equity and diluting yourself and giving up control. Every single time, what investors are really buying is a call option on the companies. And I think this company can be worth X, Y, Z. At the early stages, 50 to 100x, medium stages, 20x, 10x, later stages, 3 to 5x. So you're making a deal with those investors, that you are going to go and try to go after that goal and that growth target. And listen, investors are diversified. They have a fund. They're investing in 20 to 30 companies. They obviously want to see you be successful, but at the same time, if you raise capital at the early stages and you get to 3 to 5 exit, the investors, or you have an opportunity to exit for 3 to 5x, the investors are going to be happy and excited for you, but they're also at the same time going to be like, well, let's really push for a 20 to 30x outcome, and let's raise the next round of capital and keep pushing, because the 3 to 5x outcome doesn't, again, really move the needle.
Benefit as much. Yeah, it makes sense, man. So what does your typical week look like as an investor, man? Because I know you're a busy guy, right? So
yeah,
walk us through your typical work week, Andrew.
Sure. So I really try to keep, one of my big things is really try to keep Mondays relatively open, just because I have a few things that I just like to do on Mondays to get into the work week and kind of ease in. So I have a few calls on Mondays, just regular scheduled calls with some LPs, some of my anchor LPs. And so those are usually on Mondays. And then Monday afternoons, usually founder calls. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, mostly calls most of the day. Portfolio founders, prospective, inbound calls, prospective LPs, prospective founders that are looking for funding. And so that's, most of the time on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then, Friday, is usually a little bit slower and a little bit more, reserved for, again, like following up on things, closing out the week. So I'd say there's not really a typical week, but I'd say, most weeks I probably spend and do, somewhere around somewhere between 5 and 10 founder calls, potential investments. And then, an emphasis for me this year is to do a better job on networking, whether it's with other investors who are at my stage and sharing deal flow, investors
Mhm.
who are a stage or two later, understanding what they're seeing in the market and the landscape. So I'm doing more and more of those regular scheduled calls just to kind of catch up, share insights and deal flow. And then also just I've started to, I've kind of built some OKRs for myself. And one of them is just meet one other, have a call with one other person who's not an investor or founder, just someone who's kind of in and around the ecosystem, where there's not necessarily something pertinent, but just, kind of connect with them. So I'm trying to do that at least once a week. A lot of that I'm doing just kind of cold inbound on LinkedIn, and again, like these are just like, for lack of a better word, interesting people
Yeah.
that I'm just trying to connect with. And sometimes it's a great conversation and there's a lot of overlap and there's potential to, do things together down the line. Who knows what that means?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, hey, like there's not so much overlap. You're, and that's okay too. But it's just always good to kind of expand the network, meet people, and kind of see what's going on.
So networking is the key word here, man. Networking, moving around, being active.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially the good and bad of the Zoom world is like it's easy to to schedule and meet people from anywhere. The bad is obviously it's much harder to build and develop a relationship over video than it is in person. Yeah,
Yeah, I know you'd rather be on the golf field hitting some holes instead, right?
for sure, for sure. I play a lot of tennis. I have a kind of a standing rule with some friends and fellow investors and things like that and founders. You come out to Englewood, I pay for the tennis court time. I come out to you, you pay for the tennis court time, but I'm always
That works.
down to play some tennis too.
Okay. That sounds good right there, man. All right. So now let's talk about 'cause I know you work hard. So what time do you have to invest in your well-being, man? I know you like to play tennis. That keeps you active. It's great. It's getting a bit colder now, especially New York, New Jersey weather. Um, when do you typically spend on investing in your wellness?
Yeah, I also have 4 kids, so I have a
You have
lot
four
of
kids.
yeah, a lot of time that I need to spend with family. Thankfully, make sure
Okay.
that they are, you know, that I am helping out and that they're getting time also with them is quality time with them is really important. So, I mean, I'm Sabbath observant, so I observe Jewish Sabbath from sundown on Friday night till sundown
Hmm.
Saturday night, which is just honestly a really great time to unplug. My wife and I on Friday nights eat dinner together. We eat dinner together most nights, but Friday night we eat dinner together and like just hang out at the dining table, talk, you know, about the week and everything else going on in our lives. And that's usually like a 2-3 hour dinner that we just have, just talking, hanging out, which is kind of nice. Um, and then like you mentioned, I usually play tennis twice a week, usually at nights. Where when the kids are sleeping, which is a little bit easier. I try to block off that 5:30 to 6:30, 7 o'clock time so that I can hang out with the kids.
Hmm.
Usually I'm the one to give them a bath during the week and in the weekends and put them to bed. And so, yeah. And then also like I kind of have like a open door ish policy with my kids. So like, they come into my office. I have a whiteboard that they can just color on. They play
Okay.
magnet
Live
tiles
my
in
sleep.
here. So yeah, so as long as they're quiet-ish or quiet enough, they just come in and hang out, which is nice. Although obviously sometimes when they start fighting and whatever, and then I gotta kick them out. But yeah, I think the one area that I need to do a better job on is probably sleep, because I usually come back and work again once the kids are sleeping after I eat dinner with my wife, and it takes me time to wind down. So even if I work till 10, 11 o'clock at night or even 12 o'clock at night and wake up at 8 and, in theory have potential for 8 hours of sleep, it's hard to shut off the brain and just go right to bed. So usually I end up scrolling Twitter or watching some TV. And that's really the area that I'm, trying to figure out a better routine on for myself.
Got you. So what's a typical wind down show? Do you have a specific show you watch, or you just hopefully you're not watching the news before going to sleep?
Yeah. I mean, I've been obviously watching lately. Sports, football, college football.
Okay.
It's been pretty insane the past week and a half or so. It's been fun. Um, yeah, and then recently I was watching Mayor of Kingstown,
Mm-hmm.
which is with Jeremy Renner. And yeah, I like suspense, action, that type of TV, which again isn't necessarily the most wind down, but at least feel like I get to turn off my brain a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of the goal with a lot of that is, how do I just like sit and again
Sit and just like chill out for a bit.
chill
Got
out
you.
for a bit before going to bed.
Got you. So, what advice would you give to other executives about staying on top of the game? Because I know, you have 4 kids, right? You are running a company. You are constantly networking. What advice can you give to other executives that are trying to find this balance between family, work, and etc.?
Yeah, I think like one of the things that I realized early on, even at the agency is I'd say two things. One is like you're never, no, not never. Oftentimes you're gonna feel like you're failing at like one part, right? There's gonna be
Hmm.
very few days where you feel like, oh wow, I crushed it at work today, crushed it at home, right? And that's okay, right? In my mind, like there are some days where I'm not I don't have time to put the kids to bed and I don't get the same chance to spend time with them. But when you take kind of that step back and you look at for sure I try to do this at least weekly, not more often, but oh, okay, like how did I spend my time? Was I happy with that, right? And so
Hmm.
some days it's sometimes I'll have a call canceled or rescheduled and then an hour, and I'll just be like, all right, cool. I have 100 emails in my inbox. My kids are outside playing. They just got home from school. Like I'll just go chill with them for an hour, right? And so figuring out that right balance is critical, but also just giving yourself a little reprieve and making sure that like again, some days you're going to feel great on one side and the other, but it's the balance might not be daily; it might be weekly
So like
for
flexibility.
folks.
Okay.
And then I think the other one is just like your calendar rules your life, at least for me. And so again, even tennis, right? And working out, schedule it, lock it off, and it's holy, right? And family time and quality time, whatever it is, it's sacred. Sorry, I can't do a call then. You know, that
Hmm.
time's booked, right? And like, sure, are there emergencies sometimes where you have to, that time that you scheduled with, to go exercise or spend quality time with your family, like, is that going to get interrupted sometimes? For sure, but trying to really, keep that separation, and then also when you're with your family, like turn off your phone or leave your phone in the in my I try to leave my phone in my office when I go out there, or just leave it in my pocket and not look at it, just because like it's so easy to become distracted and like, oh,
Yes.
let me answer this one email, oh, this one email, and like you look up and it's 15 minutes later and like now you got to go back to work, and like the whole point was to go spend time with the family, and you weren't really able to accomplish that. So
Yes, indeed. So right now I'm hearing be intentional and be present. Those are two
yeah,
things.
right.
Yes, indeed. All right. So are you currently working on any new projects that you can share with us right now?
I have an idea for an NFT project that I'm
NFT space.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really sure where it is right now, or I should say, I know where it is right now. It's nowhere. But yeah, I'm excited about it and that I like the idea. I'm probably not the right person to execute against it. Um, so I'm trying to find the right people. Um, and it's there's kind of two goals here. One is it's a social justice project, so that's the number one, two, three goal. The number 4 and 5 goal is just for me to learn a little bit more about the ecosystem and space. I'm not currently investing in Web3 or NFTs out of the fund. I do a little bit of it personally, again, just to learn at
Mhm.
this point. But obviously, with what's happening there, there's a ton going on in the space. I think a lot of it, just like a lot of the startup world, will go to zero. But there are elements of it that are pretty impactful. Things like smart contracts, things like provenance and ledgers, and other elements of crypto and Web3 that will live beyond kind of just the Web3 1.0, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I hear you on that, man. Definitely. So if someone were to inquire about your services or just want to connect with you, where can they find you, Andrew?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, if you wanna be in touch, if you're a founder, just go to irreverent.com. There's a pitch section. Feel free to fill that out. I get back to every single cold inbound within 2-3 days, and I'm pretty good about that. I'd say get back to 80% within 4 or 5 days, 100% within like 7 to 10 days, if not sooner. And Yeah, if you just want to kind of follow along, learn more about me, feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm pretty active there at irrvrntVC. And if you just want to chat and find time to connect, feel free to email me and let me know what's going on. Andrew at irreverent.io or irreverent.com. And always, like I said, happy to network, meet folks in and around the ecosystem, and learn from people.
Yes, indeed. Cool, cool. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on today's episode of How May I Serve You, man. And last but not least, how may I serve you, man?
Well, this was great. I appreciate it. I think this was a really awesome conversation with, really due to the questions you asked and drove here. And I'd say kind of the same thing that I tell most folks is if there are early stage founders, that you are talking to, thinking about raising, currently raising, even, just starting, always happy to chat with people and see if there's an overlap and a fit, ways that I can help them potentially obviously invest, and connect with them.
Got it. Awesome. You know what? I normally get at least 3 to 4 pitch decks a week. So I'll make sure I'll pass me away if there's an overlap.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Got you. So thanks everyone for coming on today and listening to today's episode. Make sure to tune in for next week's episode and make sure to take care of yourself. Be safe. Much love. We're out.
Thank you.